This is something I shared first service, but Ricky Skaggs, he's an incredible musician, kind of a bluegrass country singer, but a believer, loves God. I've had past friends that had him in, just awesome. But Billy Graham's magazine, Decision magazine, interviewed him several years ago, and here's what he said. What I've seen in the past 10 years of traveling, performing at a church one day and a casino the next, is that a lot of people in the church want to be entertained, and people in casinos want to be ministered to. That's hard to understand, but I see a hunger in the world that I don't see in the church. That is an indictment against the church. And so we were talking, Rich, and a few of us in the back there. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. What we're facing right now, our nation has faced impossible odds. As a matter of fact, our nation should have never been birthed. The British Empire, it was foolishness in the natural for these 13 little colonies, which was a ragtag group of people, for them to come up the great British Empire and to take them on. But they had a firm reliance upon God. And then, of course, our good friend Bill Federer is going to be here because we're going to, you know, Lynn and I were talking one morning. I'd been studying about some different things, and I was actually putting it on my computer. I wanted to show you. But the Constitutional Convention, that was where Benjamin Franklin called for prayer. And I think we've got kind of a painting of it we can put up. It was June of 1787. And so there's, I believe that's Reverend Duché, but George Washington's in there. And our founding fathers depended upon God. There are public proclamations of prayer and fasting, and they used the term humiliation, days of humiliation. Those were days we would humble ourselves before the Lord. David Barton does this incredible job of taking when we in America were losing all these battles, and then all of a sudden it was governors, it was the president, it was various ones calling for days of prayer and fasting. And guess what happened when the prayer and the fasting began? All of a sudden, we started winning the battles again because we inquired of the Lord. And so one of the comments in here, you know, there's this ridiculous, ludicrous argument that our founding fathers were deist, atheist, secularist, that our Constitution is a godless Constitution, which is taught, that book is used in law schools across America, and it's total absurdity. But here's what Benjamin Franklin said: the small progress we have made after 4 or 5 weeks, close attendance and continual reasonings with each other, our different sentiments, almost every question, several of the last producing as many nays as yeas, and methinks a melancholy proof of the imperfection of human understanding, we indeed seem to feel our own want of political wisdom. Since we have been running about in search of it, we have gone back to ancient history for models of government. Now remember, this is for the Constitution, and that's the supreme law of our land. And he says, we've gone back to ancient histories, models of government, examine the different forms of those republics, which have been formed with the seeds of their own dissolution, now no longer exist. And we viewed modern states all around Europe, but find none of their constitutions suitable to our circumstances. This you'll recognize I'm leaving a whole lot out. Every bit of it's worth reading. I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this. And I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. We shall be divided by our little partial local interest. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and a byword down to future age. And what is worse, mankind may hereafter this unfortunate instance despair of establishing governments by human wisdom and leave it to chance, war, and conquest. So put that picture back up. So that's when they began to pray, and the presence of God showed up. I'm telling you, these weren't dead, dry prayer meetings. These were men calling out to God. Pastor Calvin, I feel we're at this point again. We were established, but we have so forsaken the Lord. We've departed from him as a nation. I know there's a lot of believers, but we're acting as a post-Christian nation, and we will reap the fruit of our doing and the leaders that we've allowed in.